Yep, I think we're all set. Is everyone ready to go? Can everyone see the screen and hear me? Excellent. Well, let's get started. Let me know if anyone has any more problems with the screen. And like I said before, too, we're also happy to schedule some follow-up demos too if we need to do that. So we're talking before about the first introduction to the software when you log in, and that'll bring you to the search screen as well as the agency name that we're working on. So this is the name of the demo environment that we're in. The launchpad to get the different features that I was talking about up front here is these little grid icons up in the top right. And you can get to the various features in there. So the search icon will be here. And then we were just creating a client. So I'm gonna click on add a client to resume that workflow. And that brings us to our new client profile page. The create a client page can be, like all the pages in Clarity, can be customized to meet your agency's needs. So in this case, we have what the default workflow is for an HMIS program. As we type in the social security number there, the system's going to go ahead and double check that against the other records in the system. The intention here is we're going to try to minimize the chance we're going to create duplicate records. A double check against that first search that we did for the client up front. If this was a mistake and we wanted to open up that client's record, we could just hit OK and jump right in there. But in this case, let's go ahead and fix that because that's a typo. I'm going to type in the correct social security number, and you'll see before it had automatically put that as a partial social security number because of those zeros at the end. The system will recognize that I fixed that and update the quality there to the full social. And you'll see that type of form logic and validation throughout the system, which makes it a little bit easier to type everything in, and hopefully will increase the confidence you have that the data you are entering is going to be accurate. And another example of that here is our date of birth. So as I type the client's name in here, I'm sorry, date of birth in here, it calculates that they're 30, and it will show the veteran status field here now that that's an option. If this client was under 18 or couldn't have been a veteran, it will automatically hide that field so that it's a little bit faster, and we can get rid of those contradictory fields that might pop up there. Same with the status for the veterans there. So if we hit yes there, it would show all the details for the veterans enrollment there. You'll notice that I can't create this client quite yet. We have the please fill and release of information form here enabled. You can set up the system if you'd like to enforce collection of the ROI before new records are created. In this case, we're going to go ahead and do the electronic signature option. So you as an agency will be able to find what the Union Gospel Mission wants to accept in terms of the client's release. We recommend electronic signature just because they'll keep it all within the system. So if you do that, you can go ahead and e-sign the document right in there. You'll have before pre-configured the release you have for the mission in here. If you need to do a separate ROI for different programs, you can do that as well. For this demo, we have the entire system using a system-wide ROI. We'll go ahead and sign that real quick. If you wanted to use a Topaz signature tablet or a iPad or a cell phone, you could do that. And you can create some custom forms using signatures too later on in the system. So now that we have that on file, the add record button's available to us. We'll hit that to go ahead and create the record. It will save a PDF of the ROI we just made, and that'll be available over here under the privacy button if we need to access that later on. So we could just hit that shield there and go ahead and download a PDF copy of that. This privacy section is also will control the global privacy settings for the client. So if we wanted to, we could mark it as private, which will restrict access to that client from staff that aren't authorized to view those sensitive clients, or in sharing agreements, you can use that flag to control how and if that client's going to be shared with those participating agencies or an export there. The calendar icon allows us to schedule appointments for this client. These are going to show up on that calendar icon up top for the staff member that they're assigned for there. And you can also use that calendar feature to keep track of things like when assessments are due or when this release information is going to be due here on the 18th of January 2020. We'll get a notification at the predetermined time before that to go ahead and collect the updated ROI from that client. The printer icon includes a bunch of reports that are specific to this individual client. So we could print a new ID card for that client. If you have a card printer, they'll pop right out there. We can customize those ID cards with the agency logo or other information. The profile screen and client history give you overviews of the enrollment and basic history of that client with the agency. Case notes will give you a comprehensive export of all the notes in the system for that client, and so forth. So an easy way to get some detailed information about that client's enrollment in the system. Let's go back over to a test client here. So we also have an option to add public alerts to those profiles. And so if you need to add a reminder that someone is due for service, or that there's been a rule violation, or that housing is available for that individual, you can add those records that'll show up anytime someone opens up that client's enrollment. On the right-hand side, we'll also see the household members. So managing clients is really simple within the system. So if we want to hit manage there, we can jump into Judy's household, and we'll see that we have this client set up to have 3 household members. If we wanted to modify one of those household members, we could just go ahead and jump on that right there. And we could go ahead and remove that or change that relationship simply. Adding a new household member is equally easy there. So if we wanted to go ahead and add Mickey, we could search for a client and hit join, and that will automatically link that up with there. It'll even provide some nice guidance there that what you're doing will affect or change the existing household relationships, and try to prevent any mistakes when you're making those household relationship decisions there. Under programs, here is where we'll actually go ahead and enroll someone up for a program. So we have a question about moving someone up in phases here. And so I think this is what we're talking about, but if I don't answer your question, let me know. So this sample client that we're looking at right now is enrolled in a transitional living center program, but let's say we want to go ahead and enroll them in a different program. Looking at the walk-in services program, you can hit this drop-down arrow next to any of the available programs, and we'll see some quick stats about that program and whether or not it's going to be a good potential fit for that client. The bar chart here, as you'll see on some of these other ones too, is going to show the current availability. If enabled, it will also show reservations and the current occupancy if we're going to be keeping track of that for that program. But so you'll have some flexibility to customize what's going to be useful for that snapshot. Same with the funding source and some other information about the types of services provided by that program. These are all intended to give people a heads up as they're looking at the various services that are available, what people are going to be eligible for, and what's going to be a good match for that client in their household. The households that we were working on, their group members are going to be included right here, so we can just quickly toggle those to bring them in if we wanted to enroll those members as well. We also have a couple handouts for the client themselves. Print directions and doc requirements are going to give 2 PDF handouts, or rather printable documents that you can give to the client to give them step-by-step directions to that program if it's in a different location, or a checklist of documents or things that they need to bring with them in order to complete the enrollment when they arrive. But if all this sounds good and we want to enroll Judy in this walk-in services program, I can hit the enroll button and it'll take me to the enrollment screen. Again, like the profile screen, we can customize this to match each program as appropriate, including adding custom fields. You can do that all as an administrator without the need to do anything custom in terms of coding or special services from Bitfocus. Let's choose the enrollment date for the Friday here. You'll see that we have some pre-configured responses here since Judy's an existing client. So it will pre-fill those relative responses as best it can from the past assessments. You can turn that off if you'd like to, but as much as it can, Clarity will try to save you some headaches and data entry there. If all this looks good, we can hit save and close, and we'll process that enrollment for Judy there. We'll get a green bar up top to let us know that the enrollment was saved, and we'll also have a green bar on the right-hand side in terms of their program history, which shows that the enrollment is active right now. This program also involves some case management services that are just kind of part of the package, and so the system is going to automatically make note that those services were provided because that's just part of the enrollment process for this program. So again, you're saving some time in terms of what you need to enter manually with Clarity. If we wanted to provide other services, it takes us right to the provide services screen. And so let's say we need to provide some utility assistance to Judy here. We could hit the down arrow next to utility payments. Let's say we're going to give her some help with her water bill. We can record the expense amount. So if you want to enable expense tracking, you can do that. We can also fix this amount so that it's set for a certain service. So if it's a bus pass or something that is of a set value, you could do that. We can also build that down against certain funding sources. So if you need to be able to report on, let's say you're given $100 to fund transit tickets over the next month, you can keep track of where each individual pass is going towards that $200, and then print out a funding invoice for that funder that lists where each dollar is going from that $100 they gave you. You can also do some service notes in there. And so if we hit submit there, we can record that. And it will go ahead and deduct that $20 from the available funds that are going to be available for future clients. They're not going to overspend what's available under that funding source. As you create those enrollments and service entries, they'll show up under the history tab for that program. And so we can use the history tab within this walk-in services program or the client's broader history tab to view a full record of what they've been doing. This is helpful, one, just kind of understanding the client's movement towards the program, but also if you're trying to verify homelessness or if you're trying to avoid duplication of services, it's really easy to get a good sense of what the activity's been. Over on the right-hand side are a couple other features that are standard to the client's record. The notes here will allow you to add case notes. You can also use our time tracking features to keep track of the time if you need to be able to bill down based on that. You can also mark individual notes private if you need to, which will keep them restricted from reporting and other things you wouldn't want sensitive information included in. Files and forms are where you'll keep your documents. Files are going to be things you're going to upload like PDFs or even images, movie files if you wanted to do that. You can add a new file here. You can pick the type and category of file. You'll define these when you're setting up the system. Our implementation team will work with you, or you can customize it later on. But why we ask you to categorize it is you can set up in programs and services then the types of programs that are going to be involved, or type of documents rather, that are going to be involved in those programs. So if you need to have a housing verification disability, a proof of insurance, whatever it may be, you can set those up as eligibility requirements for that program, and then the system will screen as to whether or not the client's doc ready as you're trying to make referral decisions or view eligibility decisions. And so we'll just go ahead and grab a file real quick and upload that. It will save a copy of that to the client's record, create a little thumbnail of it. And if we needed to, we can modify or update that if it's something that's going to be updated over time. Forms is the interactive version of the files feature. So where you have fillable forms that you have as part of your program's workflow, you can support a paperless system with clarity there. So here's the sample of a veteran's acceptance card that's real simple. If we were to add this to the client's record, you'll see that it has piped in Judy Smith's name there as well as the date. You can customize this kind of like you would a mail merge in Word, or if you're familiar using MailChimp or something like that, where it will try to take the busy work out of filling out some of the forms for you. You can also add fillable pieces, whether it's toggles like this or form fields earlier on, and then of course signature support like the ROI. And similar to the ROI, it will save a PDF of that completed form, and we'll keep that to the client's record. And if you needed to go ahead and print a hard copy of that, you could just jump in there and it will open up a PDF that you could print out. Or if you were going to add a paper copy of it that had been collected in the field, you could just hit the add button there and it will instead prompt you to pick the scanned file that you want to upload. So a few options there. In both the files and the forms feature can be used as we're trying to look at that doc ready piece, or if you want to use our charts and notes feature to keep track of clients' progress on various pieces like, for example, increasing their earned income or completing a series of group programs, you can use these to check off as to whether or not those are complete. If this program is all working good and it's time now to exit Judy from the walk-in services program, we can hit this exit button to exit her out of the program. Most programs are going to have a little bit more of a detailed exit screen, but it's pretty simple here for this one. We include all of the default HUD entry assessment and /status update, exit, and then follow up if that's appropriate based on the data standards. So those are all available for you to build and customize off of. It will also show you before you exit, Judy, that there's some open services, and it will automatically prompt you to go ahead and select closing dates for those services that are part of this program that we're going to be exiting out of. And so let's pick a later date there, and we'll save and close that. You'll see there it has added that end date there. It's going to remain green since that date's in the future, but once we got past the 27th, that bar would turn red to let us know that Judy's enrollment's no longer active. Let's look at a few of the other features of the enrollment of the client's record here. So in addition to the programs, we can also provide services ad hoc. So if there were other services that the agency provided that are outside of enrollment in a formal program, you can provide those as one-offs. So food bag, for example, you could just add a note there. And so service entries are really fast in terms of being able to log that activity. And like I was mentioning with the program, the broader history will show both that program history as well as all the other activities that's happening for the client in the system. And if you were sharing records with HMIS or with another system, you could have a comprehensive view of those interactions as well. That can get pretty big, as you can imagine. And so if you hit this view option, you can search either for a specific service that you're looking for or by category or the type of interaction there. So you can quickly nail down on what you're looking for. Also helpful when you get a lot of records is you can browse over these little icons on the right and get a sense of how much money was spent or what the notes were associated with any piece there. So a few different options to look at what's been going on with that client. To the right is going to be our assessments feature. So we have built-in assessments like you would use for coordinate entry, as well as assessments in the context of the yearly assessment or other assessments you have to do for your HUD programs. But you can also create your own assessments that you would use either to assess a client or prioritize them, or just to update that client's information, either using custom fields or some of the HUD fields that are available in the system. Just to give you a sense of what that looks like, let's look at the VI SPDAT. We include all of the VI SPDAT versions as well as the other org code assessments and some of the other common coordinate entry assessments if that's useful. And you can also customize those or build your own off that. But what's really nice about Clarity, I think, is that ability to add the custom fields and then to create your own custom assessments from there, because then you can create something that's real tailored to what you need to do. Going hand in hand with the assessments is the ability to score those. And so we have the scoring processors for the VI SPDAT and those pre-built ones, but likewise, you can create your own custom scoring processors to turn these forms into a numerical score that you could then use for eligibility determinations or just to prioritize a ranked list. You could even assign multiple scoring processors to a single assessment. So if you had a consolidated assessment that you wanted to prioritize one way for a youth population, but another way for a single adult population, you could do that without having to use two different assessments, but still be able to generate two different prioritized scores off that. So we'll just complete here the VI SPDAT. That's a long one. We can also move the assessments from other Clarity implementations if we need to over to your implementation. So if there's a Washington State HMIS assessment that you're required to complete, that can be recreated as well. Okay. So we'll hit save there, which will save that assessment, and it will also score it right away. So for the VI SPDAT, if you've ever scored it by hand, it can take a little while, but it will break this down now by those different subcategories for the VI SPDAT. If you were having your own assessment, you would have defined what categories and logic you wanted to use to generate that score. And then we were talking about eligibility and Docker readiness earlier on. It's going to use this score as well as the other eligibility rules we've set up for each program to give a list of the programs that are available that this client is eligible for. So it will take that VI SPDAT score as well as demographic factors, enrollment in other programs, whatever it may be that you configure, and then we'll pre-screen those clients against that. You can also view all the other programs in the system with that down arrow too. So if there's a reason to override that or a special circumstance, those are still available to you. Then we also have a system-wide community queue that you can refer people to, which is going to be just a prioritized list of those clients waiting for placement in an individual program. So that's the assessment piece there. A lot of different options depending on what your needs are. Notes is a case notes feature that's global to the client here. So in addition to having the notes that you might have specific to an enrollment, you can have general case notes here or view a history of all of the notes from the various programs within their record. This is also where you would edit those public alerts. So that yellow bar we saw when we first pulled up Judy's record, you can add and edit that using the add alert button here. The files option is going to be an option to have files and forms not tied to the client's individual program again. So we'll see the forms that we uploaded as part of that walk-in services program. And if Judy had been part of other programs, we'd be able to see those files there too. Location is what we use a lot of times with our outreach applications, or if you're just trying to keep track of the locations of the various services that are provided there. But if you're in the field with an iPad or a mobile phone, you can just hit this compass icon and it will pull your current location and it will keep track of that field interaction. And then you can see with this down arrow on the right here, a history of all of the field interactions that we've had with Judy. You can even throw a little street view guide down there to get a sense of what that looks like. It's nice to get some geographic context sometimes to how you've been interacting with that client. You can also add addresses manually, both for service interactions as well as just relevant locations for that client, whether it be a work or school or whatever it may be. Referrals on the right allow you to refer the client between various programs. And so Judy doesn't have any referrals that have been made, but if we were to have assigned them a referral to a program after we completed that via SPDAT, we would have seen that right here in this list of the referrals. So that was a very quick overview of the client's record there. Any questions before we jump over to reporting or take a look at some of the data analysis features? Great. If not, the reporting side of things, we access through the launcher. So we'll hit the launcher and go over to reports. There's two halves to our reports in Clarity Human Services. There's the report library. This is where we'll find all our canned reports like the HUD APR, the XML CSV exports for HUD, or some of the administrative program and service reports. And then we also have the Explore and Data Analysis tabs. These are going to be for ad hoc resources or for data analysis, building dashboards, those things where you want to answer a question or pull information from the system. That's not going to be part of the predefined library of reports that HUD gives you, or some of the pre-made ones we've made to supplement those. And so actually, before we jump into those, we've got a question about how to assign a bed or floor. So that's a good question. With the referrals, we have some additional features that are built in for especially a shelter situation or where you have specific beds or units that you're going to need to assign people to. I'm going to jump over to a different agency real quick where we have this set up. So we call this the reservation tool within Clarity. And so we have 3 beds or 3 services here that we have that reservation system set up for. So let's say we wanted to make a reservation for a specific bed within our youth shelter beds. I'm just going to hit reservation here. And it's going to pull up a representation of this program. And you can break this up a few different ways depending on what's appropriate for you. Here we have it broken up physically, kind of by wing A, wing B, wing C. Some people will do it by top bunk, bottom bunk, disability accessible, non-accessible, whatever makes sense. You'll define that when you're setting up your program. But let's say B3 is where we want to throw our client. We can search for a client, grab Judy that we were working with, hit select. We're going to reserve a bed for Judy for the next 15 days. And if we hit preview, it will go ahead and double check that that specific bed, B3, is available across all of those next 15 days. If it's not for any reason, the system will automatically try to find another bed in that unit block that's available, and it will choose the bed that's going to be most available for the rest of that span. So basically trying to minimize the times that we would have to move Judy to fill all 15 days that we're trying to fill for that reservation. In this case, though, good news, B3 is available across all 15, so we can just hit confirm. It's going to let us know that reservation was made, and then we'll see here that Judy's name is taking that bed. If we wanted to look at a specific unit, like that B3, and see what it looked like over time, we can also view the calendar view. And so in this case, looking at bed B3, we'll see Judy's reservation we just made starting on the 18th and going over the next 15 days through the 1st. The flip side of that, since we're talking about it, is checking them in. So go into the attendance tool, which is where these features live. We can hit on this pencil icon to jump into the attendance tool, which is where we'll actually check in people for those reservations. We'll see Judy's name here because we're expecting her tonight. Any other reserved clients would also show up here. We could just click their name to add them to let them know that they got checked in. And then if that wasn't pre-reserved, or if we didn't have reservations set up already for all those clients, we could also use a barcode scanner or search for clients using the search button to check them in, assuming we had availability. So a few different options about how we can do that. And you can use this for a lot of different services too. So if it's recording shower services, whether or not they completed a urinalysis, whatever it may be, the attendance tool is a good way to do that if you're processing a large number of people quickly. The service notes is a better option if there's a need to protect privacy, if you're going to be keeping more detailed notes person to person. It's a slower process, or more individualized rather, as you're checking people in. But a few different options for different pieces. We also have a kiosk mode you can enable. So if you have a standalone unit where someone has to check in every time they take a shower, you can do that and capture those shower services or whatever it may be. So going back to the reporting side of things, on the report library, you'll see it's broken up into a few different categories. HUD reports is where the standard HUD reports live for the most part. A few of the special ones are going to be under the administrator reports that run a little bit more broadly. But to export data for a CSV or an XML, we can just hit run there under that one. Or if you wanted to run an APR, we can go to the annual performance report. That's a pretty common one. So let's hit run there. Most reports in the report library are going to have the same basic setup in terms of how you run them. They'll ask you basically what's the universe of client data we want to look at. Our demo program doesn't have a ton of information. It's going to be pretty broad and select multiple programs and program types. And I'm also going to go back all the way a year or so. So we'll just pick the dates that we want to go ahead and run that for. And then we can also run the report under a few different formats. And so I'm running this right now as a web page, but we could also run it as a PDF, which will give you the traditional looking APR style report that you would see on the HUD Exchange. Great for print, archiving. And then we also have an Excel version if you need a spreadsheet that you can download or manipulate with charts or graphs or things like that. But the web view is what's most useful for general circumstances. The reason for that is it's going to be interactive, and we can drill down a little bit to better understand what's making up the various numbers that are reported in it. The reports within Clarity and the report library are all going to be queued up here in the report queue, which is going to be the little bar graphs on the top right. You can continue to use the system as they're running, and once they are done, just like that, it'll pop up and let you know. You can schedule those too if you want to have those run regularly every night or something like that for a bigger report. But the APR is one of the more detailed reports in the system. I think it's a little over 2,000 data points. So you'll see the report system runs very quickly. And what I meant by interactive is, let's say we're looking at the Q5 validations table where we're double checking the data quality for the APR report. And I'm looking at the number of stayers here as being 18. And I know that's not right. I know that we had at least 20 stayers over that report period. I can click on 18, see who those 18 people are. The red number on the left is going to be their Clarity ID number. We can jump into their client record using that. We'll see the client's name. They're grouped by household. Those are the black bars there. And we'll see some other basic information about that client to help us better understand and verify the accuracy of our report, or make sure that we can make whatever actionable decision we're trying to use that report to do. So that's true not just in our APR, but in all of the reports that are in the report library. And you can also do that beyond just the data quality tables, but any of the values within the report. So even if we're going to scroll down here to one of the letter tables here, we can see what's going on between the length of participation and who are the individuals who had stayed here between 181 and 365 days. So some nice flexibility built in there. For a few reports, we also have more detailed drill downs that are available. So going back to the report library, with the APR specifically, be it the HUD data quality report, is a great way to double check and get some more detail as to the clients that are included in that universe. And then of course, when it comes time to export or upload those to Sage or to another system, you can do that right away just from the run button here on the XML CSV export. What's nice about this too is you can also encrypt the identifying data right there. So you can upload it via the identified set too if you need to. So that's the canned report library. There's about 175 different reports that comprise that, and we add more regularly. The Explorer and the data analysis are the interactive ones that we were mentioning earlier. So let me give you a sense of what those look like. Clicking on the Explorer tab will give you a few different ways of looking at the data in your HMIS. And this is looking at the current information as it was entered. So as soon as you type something into the system, it's going to show up and be reportable here. And it also includes not just the HUD HMIS elements, but any custom fields or other data that you're collecting locally as an agency. And so let's look at something simple. So the number of clients will just give us the total number of individuals in the system. Let's say we just wanted to see how many people are in each program here. So you'll see I'm typing in just search terms in the top search bar here. So you don't necessarily need to know the exact field you're looking for. It's pretty flexible, and we can hit these little eyes to get some drill downs just to make sure we're selecting the right thing. So we'll see that this is element 2.2.2 for the data standards.
Workbooks by Melvin.
And if we were to hit run here, it'll go ahead and pull in real time all the programs that are here and the number of clients. If we wanted to pump that into a chart for a presentation or something like that, we can just hit this visualization button. Let's say that we're really interested, though, just in this Bayview program up top here. When we click on that, we can filter by it. And let's say we want to know the veteran status here. So if we're looking at veteran information, we can hit veteran status. And if we wanted to pivot here, we can look within this Bayside program here and see the number of veteran versus non-veterans that are in that program. And so real quickly, kind of whatever you're trying to answer in terms of what your data is telling you, you can pull that with a few clicks using the data analysis tool. Data analysis button on the right will allow you to view some saved dashboards that you made with that Explore button. So to give you a sense of what, after you made a few different charts you can pull together, you can pull together something like this, which would be a snapshot of an individual client's data quality, or, oops, let's go look at the coordinate entry by name list here. Here's a sample from a coordinate entry kind of context of just a prioritized list. And each of these charts were made using that same tool that we were just looking at. And if you wanted to, you could take this chart, schedule this to be emailed out to your board, to the key constituents. You could upload the raw data as a CSV file to a secure FTP server. A lot of flexibilities with how you might want to share or integrate with other systems. And we'll avoid spamming anyone for now. So a quick overview there, kind of what the dashboards look like. Looks like I got a question in chat about some capacity-based reports here. So you could, of course, create your own dashboards if you wanted to. But we also, in the report library, are going to have some program-based reports, which are probably pretty helpful for that. The program details report, and we can send you some copies of what various reports of these look like, but we have the program details report and the household service report will give you a good breakdown of everyone that's involved, or all the clients that have been served over periods of time. And then within the data analysis piece, especially the HMIS population over time, or the project descriptor model, if you're really like trying to be specific about the bed utilization, can allow you to create some quick dashboards of what that might look like. But we'll send you some PDFs of what those look like. Any other questions about the report or dashboard features that are in Clarity there? We also, if you'd like, can connect up to Tableau or other third-party reporting services. Basically, we make available a VPN-secured SQL connection where you can run your own database queries directly against the client database if you need to do that. In terms of getting information into Clarity, that's also just as easy. So going back to our launcher icon, we can go to the data import tool, and we can select a file. There'd be a hot XML file that you can pull into the system. So we have one that's already loaded up here that you can take a look at. And it will give you a quick breakdown of what's in that file, so you can double check to make sure that it is what you think it is in terms of the full export from the legacy system. So, you know, the number of records, the number of program records, and then you will just match it up one time, and then it'll go ahead and process that upload to bring those client records in. We also have an API available on the back end if you wanted to do a scripted connection to the system. Perfect. So that's kind of our general overview of the Clarity system. I know that we lost some time there at the beginning. Are there any questions that you want to look at things in more detail, or that I went over too quickly for you? Yeah, there was a question about the how long information is in here. So a few things, you know, as we get more information system, you can get a situation where you can run into duplicate records. We try to battle this in a few different ways. So when you're first creating clients, we have that robust search feature that allows you to track down client records that may already exist, so you can avoid creating them. If you already get into the create client workflow, we'll be double checking those unique identifiers as you type them in. So like the social security number we typed in, to make sure that we're not creating duplicates. But sometimes duplicates are necessary for privacy reasons or whatnot, or when you're importing things. And so we're also running a script in the system to match records and assign what we call the general ID number, which we use to deduplicate records across the system when you're running system-wide performance reports. And so we use the HUD specifications to do that, more or less, which is going to be involving the social security number, the client's full name. We use a fuzzy matching algorithm to tie that up, and then their date of birth. And then we'll match those client records together to deduplicate them. In terms of your legacy data, when we're pulling that in, we'll be a little bit more robust in that too. We'll take a first crack at it to try to identify any clear duplicates, fix those, so we're bringing in the best data quality possible before it even hits Clarity. So we've had pretty good success reducing duplicates through those processes. Over time, we keep a record of everything that's in the system. So each interaction that a client has, even if you've been using Clarity for years, will be accessible and reportable on. So if you need to be able to pull how many times someone checked in to a program over time, you could do that as well. And in fact, let me kind of show you what that looks like real quick. The HMIS population over time is one of the data analysis models we have set up to try to look particularly at the longitudinal things like service check-ins. And so what we'd be looking at here is just the number of clients served. And we can add in the date that was provided there. So I don't think we have too many services on there, but let's look at our just observation day here. And so you'll see here, so this is just looking at the number of clients enrolled in a program. But if you wanted to look at this for the number of calls, if you had a call service in there, you could do that using the same technique here. And so this is just looking at month to month over time, what our volume was in terms of the number of clients there, which is nice for that first look. But what's really powerful about our data analysis tools is that you can then kind of go beyond to that next level of analysis and filter down and say, you know, great, the overall value is that, but if we wanted to look just at youth or something like that, how does that compare? Or, you know, whatever it is you're trying to nail down in policy-wise. Any other questions or things that you'd like to see there? So a question about whether or not you can set time-based alerts for clients. You can. A good example of this would be the status assessments. And so you can set up for a program that you need to have 6-month check-ins, 12-month check-ins, whatever the interval may be. And then it will alert the case manager assigned that that's upcoming. You can do a similar thing with the ROIs, or if it's just going to be an ad hoc reminder of a certain date, you can use our appointments feature as a good way to log those dates and set alerts. Any other questions or anything else I can show you? We're also happy to field any questions via email too, or if we'd like to set up another call to address anything in more detail, we can do that too.
They've been doing this for a short time now. I don't know when they're going to do it. But it's more crafted. That's what it is. This one is more crafted. Well, I mean, since we're changing up from walking time, we might as well start this right away. Yeah, but yeah, I don't want to lose our file. So, well, that's true. Put it all out. Set time-bound alerts.
So as far as training dates, you know, the way we'll typically handle that is after we get started with our implementation team, we'll work with the key constituents to get things configured, and we'll set up how and when to do the trainings for key staff. We can roll those out as one big training, or, you know, a lot of times the schedules or job roles, it makes sense to have a few different pieces there. So we can be pretty flexible on how to train staff. We have a number of training materials that are available in addition to the live trainings too. So I know that as staff turnover, or new jobs are created or things like that, training's an ongoing need. And so we try to make a few different resources available to help you do that well. Great. Well, I hope this was helpful for everybody. Like I said, please don't hesitate to reach out to Cameron or I if anyone has any questions, or if we can go over anything in more detail. If anyone wants to see anything more on today's Nebo, just hit us up on chat, or you can unmute yourself and we'd be happy to do that. But otherwise, really, thank you for joining us. We appreciate the time.
What's that going to do about out of the general field? Yeah, I wouldn't run it until I'm using it in the first place. Okay. Well, we get a picture of this, we're not going to get any details.
That's something I would talk to Paul.
Well, thanks everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and close out the webinar if there are any other questions, but please don't hesitate to contact us, like I said, and we look forward to hearing more from you all. Thank you.